WCW Nitro played host to some incredible main events during its time, as well as some that would ultimately sink the company into the ground. But that's not what this list is about, baby. This list is here to celebrate the strangest matches to ever round out an episode of Nitro. So I'm Gareth, this is What Culture Wrestling, and here are the 10 weirdest WCW Nitro main events ever. Number 10, Sid Vicious vs. Tank Abbott, February 28, 2000. Vince Russo is one of the most divisive figures in the wrestling world for a number of reasons. The original bro, no, not Matt Riddle, was responsible for some of the best moments of WWE programming during the Attitude Era, but is also credited with helping to destroy WCW in its final years. One of his more bonkers ideas whilst working for Ted Turner was to crown the inexperienced and frankly terrible former UFC fighter Tank Abbott as WCW champion. How this pitch was so poorly received by company management that Russo was removed as head writer and then quit the promotion when asked to work as part of a committee. But this nightmare scenario almost came true on the February 28, 2000 edition of Nitro, where Abbott squared off against world champion the late great Sid Vicious, with Sid's gold on the line. Much to the delight of everyone not named Tank or Vince, the cage fighter was beaten in under 4 minutes in a match that could best be described as ropey. Yep, we'll go with ropey. Abbott would go on to join the boy band faction 3 Count, and any dreams of a world title reign were permanently crushed. And while we're talking about Sid Vicious, it seems like a good time right now to ask you, what is your favourite Sid Vicious moment of all time? Let me know in the comment section below, and rest in peace, you legendary man. Number 9, Kevin Nash vs. David Flair, June 28, 1999. Of all the Nepo babies in wrestling history, and oh, there have been a lot of them, few are as infamous as David Flair. Despite receiving a considerable push in WCW, Ric Flair's son never lived up to his father's reputation, or came anywhere near it really. That didn't stop the promotion from repeatedly trying to get him over though, which included this main event from the June 28, 1999 Nitro. On a show featuring Curt Hennig, Diamond Dallas Page, Eddie Guerrero, and more, it was David that was chosen to go up against world champion Kevin Nash in the main event. And yes, the belt was very much on the line. What? This was a lumberjack with all of Flair's pals surrounding the ring, but Nature Boy Jr. still couldn't get the job done. He was even armed with a stun gun. How bad do you have to be to lose a match with all that going for you? Well, very bad. The bout ended in a dismal DQ in the end. If only this was the end of David's push. But sadly, that would continue well into the following year. Unwoo. Number 8, Kevin Green vs. the Giants, June 22nd, 1998. The late Kevin Green was a mighty fine American football player. He played for several major franchises, was part of the NFL's 1990s All-Decade team, and was elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2016. Impressive stuff. Sadly, none of this talent transferred over to the wrestling ring. Green had 5 matches for WCW between 1996 and 1998, 4 of which were on pay-per-view. His only TV match was on Nitro on June 22nd, 1998, and his opponent was the Giant, who himself was only about 3 years into his career. And in Ring Classic, this was not, dear viewer. The two big boys bumped into each other a few times. Giant hit an elbow drop, Green hit a low blow, and then Curt Hennig ran in and caused the DQ. And that was it. This whole charade was over in under 90 seconds, and almost 30 years later, people are still wondering why it was chosen to go on last. The pair would have a rematch a few weeks later at Bash at the Beach, where Giant would get his win back in what turned out to be Green's final wrestling bout. Hell of a run. Number 7, Ric Flair vs. Eric Bischoff, December 28, 1998. Anyone who's seen Starrcade 1998 will know that Eric Bischoff and Ric Flair had a match that Eazy-E won after punching Nate with a foreign object. Eric Bischoff holds a pinfall victory over Ric Flair, and people have the nerve to suggest that wrestling is unrealistic, eh? Luckily, Flair got the chance to right this wrong the very next night on Nitro, when he took on Bischoff in a rematch. This time, though, the presidency of WCW was on the line, so you can bet your rear end there was a whole lot of nonsense surrounding this match. The NWO and the Four Horsemen all got involved, as did DDP, Booker T, and a returning Randy Savage, who turned on the black and white by beating up the Giant. And all this chaos resulted in Flair submitting Bischoff via the figure 4, winning the day for the good guys. Yay. The crowd absolutely loved this segment, cheering for it like it was the second coming. But of all Flair's great main event opponents over the years, Hogan, Sting, Steamboat, Funk, etc., it's probably safe to say that Bischoff ranks towards the bottom in terms of wrestling prestige. Yep, he probably does. Number 6, The Wall vs. Hulk Hogan, March 27, 2000. Whilst most people will remember Hulk Hogan and the Wall Brother from that incredible segment where Hogan was able to identify his enemy whilst he was standing on top of a massive building. They did actually have a match too. It took place on Nitro on March 27, 2000, and was a throwback to Hogan's glory days, where he would defend the WWF Championship against the Monster of the Month. That strategy might have worked in 1984, but in 2000? Yeah, maybe not. Wall was being given a pretty substantial push that involved him choke-slamming a lot of people off of very high things. But this wasn't nearly enough to put him on Hogan's level. There was also no way the Hulkster was going to take a bump like that, Jack. Nor was there any reality where this meathead was going to get a clean win here. Sure enough, the match ended in a DQ when Vampiro attacked the Wall. Even though Hogan had hit him with a chair just moments earlier, the two would never face off one-on-one ever again as well. At least we'll always have the building promo though, eh? Thanks for checking out this wacky WCW list today, my friend. And if you're enjoying your lovely self, then hit that subscribe button down below and you will get more of these What Culture videos in your life. Just do it makes sense. Number 5, Goldberg vs. Glacier, May 18th and June 29th, 1998. Here's a weird match that didn't just main event one episode of Nitro, but two. Raymond Lloyd is best known to the wrestling world as Glacier, the Mortal Kombat-inspired character who debuted in WCW in 1996 with one of the craziest backstories ever. There simply isn't enough time to go into it all now, but it's definitely worth a read when you finish with this wonderful list. Despite his entrance and ring gear costing an absolute fortune, Glacier spent most of his time in the mid-card, but would challenge for the occasional championship. He actually got the honor of closing Nitro twice in 1998, the May 18th and June 29th episodes, and on both shows his opponent was defending United States champion Goldberg. On one side of the ring you had an ultra-serious badass whose character was firmly rooted in reality. On the other though, you had a guy ripped right from the pages of a pulpy comic book. Who on earth thought this was a good idea? Predictably, Bill dispatched the wannabe Sub-Zero on both occasions, because of course he bloody did. In total, Glacier would contribute 4 points to Goldberg's legendary win streak, but would never get his frozen hands on a title of his own. Not cool. Number 4, NWO Sting vs. Mr. JL, October 21st, 1996. At Fall Brawl 1996, Sting shocked the world when he betrayed WCW and joined up with the evil NWO. Or did he? This turncoat was in fact Jeff Farmer, the former Cobra who had painted his face to look exactly like the Icons. Rather than disappear after the pay-per-view though, NWO Sting stuck around and even got himself a main event match on the October 21st Nitro. His opponent was Mr. JL, better known as Jerry Lynn, meaning that match featured a fake WCW champion and a future ECW champion. What a world we live in. Now the contents of this match aren't really important, but how it ended sure is, folks. Whilst NWO Sting had JL in the Scorpion Deathlock, the real Sting made his return to cause a DQ, dressed in a proto version of his famous crow look. This was also the night the Stinger debuted his Scorpion Death Drop finisher, and it was the final time he spoke on air for over a year. A historic moment, one worthy of the main spot. But in kayfabe, if Sting hadn't intervened, this would have been a very odd way to close the episode, that's for sure. Number 3, The New Blood vs. Kevin Nash, June 5th, 2000. Of all the wackadoo ideas WCW had in 2000, The New Blood, a stable made up of all the young, oppressed talents, was actually one of the better ones. But sadly, they made them all heels because, WCW. This gigantic group of wrestlers, led by Eric Bischoff and Vince Russo, got the chance to do some serious damage when they were booked in a gauntlet match against Kevin Nash on the June 5th edition of Nitro. One man versus a whole faction. What could possibly go wrong? They didn't get off to the best start, as Nash eliminated Disco Inferno, Chris Candido, Johnny the Bull, Big Vito, and Rey Mysterio Jr. within about a minute. But don't worry, here comes Shawn Stasiak to save the day. Oh wait, no, he's leading a big beatdown that gets the match thrown out. Never mind then. So to summarize, Nash beat 5 guys in about 60 seconds without breaking a sweat, and the match ended in a brawl that made the New Blood look like total chumps. People wonder why this company went under in less than a year's time. Number 2, Kevin Sullivan vs. Hard Body Harrison, March 10th, 1997. Gather round, friends, and hear the sordid tale of Hard Body Harrison. Harrison Norris Jr. served as a sergeant in the US Army before joining the WCW power plant training facility in 1995. He started appearing on TV in 1996 as a jobber to guys like Hugh Morris, Glacier, and Disco Inferno, but then scored his big break on the March 10th, 1997 Nitro. He was booked to face Kevin Sullivan on a show that emanated from a Florida nightclub, and it did not go well for him at all. First, Sullivan beat him up, then Jacqueline beat him up, then Tony Schiavone got his name wrong on commentary, then Sullivan threw him into a swimming pool after they both got counted out. Since the quote-unquote main event of this show was an NWO talking segment, this was actually the final match on the card, all 2 minutes of it. As for Harrison, he would stick around in WCW until its dying days. He sued WCW in 2000 for alleged racial discrimination, and in 2008 he was sentenced to life in prison for his part in a sex trafficking operation. What a guy. Number 1, Vince Russo vs. Booker T, September 25th, 2000. WCW did many stupid things in its time, but one of its most dunderheaded moves was putting its world title on head writer and non-wrestler Vince Russo. This travesty went down on the September 25th, 2000 episode of Nitro. Russo got the main event slot against defending champion Booker T. But this was no ordinary match, people. This was a caged heat match. That means it was basically a Hell in a Cell ripoff. Russo tried to get the better of his opponent by wearing football gear and wielding a baseball bat. But Booker had things in hand. That was until Russo's rival Goldberg showed up and speared Vince through the cage wall. Since the objective of the match was to escape the cage, and Russo had been judged to have done so first, he was declared the new champion. And not only that, but he immediately vacated the title, meaning that Booker T couldn't even get his win back. Madness. If anyone you know ever tries to defend Vinny Rue and his booking decisions, just show him this. That should get him to shut right up. If you've had a bit of fun with this list today, my friend, then why not check out another What Culture WCW video right here? Perhaps this 10 times WCW was the craziest promotion ever one will do the trick. I think it will. Go and click on it.